We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Hey Amid Beis in Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 55b. This is the beginning of the sixth parak of Bava Kamma. The Mishnah says, Hakones tzon ladir, if somebody puts the sheep inside the pen, v'noal b'fonei karoi, and closes the gate properly, v'yotze v'hizika, and the animal gets out and it causes damage, pater, he's pater, because he watched it properly. Lo noal b'fonei karoi, if he doesn't close the gate properly, v'yotze v'hizika, and it goes out and it damages, chayiv, in that case he is chayiv. Nifritza b'layla, if the fence is breached in the middle of the night, Osha Partsua listim, or let's say robbers breach the fence, V'yatza v'hizika, and the animal goes out and damages, Pater, in that case he is Pater. Hotziyuha listim, if the robbers take out the animal, listim chayav, and then it's the robbers who are chayiv. Hinicha bechama, if he leaves it in the hot sun, Oshemisara lecheresh otavakater, and he gives the animal over to a deaf mute, to an imbecile or to a minor, V'yatza v'hizika, and then it goes out and it causes damage, chayiv, in that case he is chayiv. Misara leroa, if he gives the animal over to a shepherd, nichnas haroa tachtav, then the shepherd takes his place, and the shepherd is the one that is responsible. Nafla legina, if the animal falls in a garden, v'nenis, and it gets benefit, it derives benefit, meshalemis mashenenis, then the amount that has to be paid is the amount of benefit that was derived. Yarda kedarka, if the animal goes down in its normal fashion, v'hizika, and causes damage, meshalemis mashehizika, then you have to pay that which was the amount of the damage. Kate said meshalemis mashehizika, how do you pay? How do you evaluate what should be paid, what the damage was? Shaman base saw ba'osa saw, that we evaluate the worth of a base saw, a certain amount of that field. Kamma hoisa yafa, how much was that entire base saw worth before? V'kamma hi yafa, and how much is it worth now that there was damage? And that is the amount that we say is the amount of damage that occurred. Rabbi Shimon says, Achla peiros gemurim, if the animal ate full fruits, meshalemes peiros gemurim, you simply evaluate and you pay the value of those full fruits. Im sa'ah, if it was a saw, then you pay for the saw fruit. Im sa'asayim, if it was two sa'asayim, then you pay for the two sa'ah. And Rashi explains, Hakone's pater, again, if he closes the gate properly, he's pater, dohanatra, because he watched it, umay havalei lemevad, what more should he have done? Hinicha bechama, if he leaves the animal out in the hot sun, mitzara lo shimsha, so then the sun bothers the animal. Velo sagi le ben ila karoi, in that case it's not enough to close the gate properly. To mukmina begemar, we say in the Gemara, what's considered properly? Tahainu delis sheyachol lamod baruch mitzuya, that's a door that's able to withstand a normal wind. Nichnas haro atachtav, then the Mishnah said that the shepherd takes the place of the owner, now the shepherd is chayiv in any damage that the animal does. Nafla legina, then the Mishnah said if the animal falls into a garden and gets benefit, you have to pay the benefit. It means to say as follows: Ba'onis, it falls by accident, migag bala, from the roof of its owner, hasamach leginas chaveru, and the roof is near the garden of his friend. Oshaisa rishos harabim gavoa minagina v'nafla, maybe the rishos harabim is higher than the private garden and it falls in, so masha nenis, so in that case you just pay the benefit. Lefi hana'asu, you pay whatever benefit the animal got, v'lo lefi hazeka, but you do not pay for damages in that case. And then the Gemara said that if the animal goes in the normal fashion and causes damage, then you pay the damages. And how do you evaluate the damage? Shaman base saw ba'osa saw, do you evaluate the size of a base saw of the field? Ein shaman es harugal avada, meaning you don't just evaluate that patch that was damaged on its own, mimnei shemafsid mazik, because then the mazik is going to lose a lot, he's going to have to pay a lot. Sheshaman osa b'chol shavi, you're essentially evaluating that entire patch, what it's worth. But the pasuk says ubir b'steyacher v'darshinon begemara, and we learn that pasuk that it means in the Gemara. We learn as follows: Melamid sheshaman osal gav sad acheres, that you evaluate it in the context of the entire field. Elashaman beisa ba'osasada. So what you actually do is you don't just look at that patch that was damaged. You take a base saw of that whole field. Kama isa yafek kodem shenechla mimeno haruga hazos. How much was the field worth before this patch was eaten? V'kama hi yafa achshav. How much is it worth now? V'hashta lo meshalim kulu damen. Now you're not going to pay the whole value. Demisha lokach beisa kashi betvuas eina mezalzel ba b'shvil hefsid aruga achas. If somebody's buying a whole field, they're not going to say that they're not going to pay for the field because there's one patch that was damaged. Kim davar muat. They're just going to take a little bit off. They're not going to take so much off. But Rabbi Shimon says, ach lepeiros gemurin, if the animal ate fruits that were ripe, shekvar bishlu kol tzarchen, they're entirely ripe, meshalemes kol hazik, then you do have to pay for the entire damage. V'heicha shaminan agav sad, and according to Rabbi Shimon, when do we evaluate in the context of the larger field? Heicha da'adayin lo nigmru. That's only in a situation where the fruits are not yet fully ripened. And the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ezo karoi ve'ezo shalo karoi. What's considered closing the gate properly and what's considered closing it not properly? If the door is able to withstand a normal wind, zehu karoi, that is doing it properly. If it cannot withstand a normal wind, zehu shalo karoi, that's considered not properly. Amar Reb Moni Bar Patish says, Man tana muad desagi le b'shmira pechusa. Who is our Tana over here that's saying that by an animal that's a muad, it's enough just to do what we call a shmira pechusa, an inferior kind of protection? Rashi says, Man tana muad b'shmira pechusa sagi le. Mani masnis and damar tzon shehizika b'shein v'regel. We're talking here about sheep that damage through the damaging of shein, eating, or regel, stepping on it in their normal way. Hu dahainu muad b'tchila. So shein and regel are considered muad from the outset. Sagila ben ila karoi. It seems like it's enough just to do a normal closing of the gate. Dahainu shmira pechusa. That's actually what we call an inferior watching. Kidukimna sheyachol lamud baruch mitzuya. That's what yachol lamud baruch mitzuya. It's called a shmira pechusa. V'yasi ruach she'ein mitzuya lo kai. If a stronger wind will come, that door will not withstand anything. So who is the Tana of our Mishnah that says that a shmira pechusa is enough by a muad? And the Gemara says Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara says that the author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Ditnan, as we learned in the Mishnah, kashru baila b'moseira v'noal lefan of karoi v'yatza v'hizik. Let's say the animal tied the owner tied the animal with the reins and closed the gate properly, and it went out and damaged. Echad tam v'echad muad chayiv divrei Reb Meir. Whether we're talking about a tam or a muad, we're going to say chayiv according to Rabbi Meir, because that's just an inferior kind of protection. It's not going to be enough. Rabbi Yehuda says tam chayiv. By a tam, the owner is chayiv because inferior protection is not enough. But muad pater, but by a muad, an inferior kind of protection is enough. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, v'lo yishmerenu be'olav. It says that the owner didn't watch it. V'shamar huzeh, but this is considered watched, and therefore by a muad, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is pater. And again, that's the author of our Mishnah. And Rabbi Eliezer says, Ein lo shmira elasak, and he says that the only way to watch a muad is with a knife, meaning to kill the animal. There really is no proper protection when it comes to a muad. And the Gemara says, Afilu temer Rabbi Meir. You could even say that our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. Again, it seemed to be that Rabbi Meir required a shmira mu'ula, a better protection. So what's going on in our Mishnah? And the Gemara explains, Shani shein v'regel. It's different when you're talking about the damages of shein and regel. Ta'atorah mi'ata b'shmirasan. By shein v'regel specifically, the Torah says you don't have to do such a shmira. The Amar Rebbe Elazar, because Rebbe Elazar said, V'yamri lo b'masnisatana. Some say it was taught in a brisa. Arba devarim haTorah mi'ata b'shmirasan. There are 4 areas where the Torah says the amount of watching you have to do is a little bit less. Ve'eluhain, they are as follows: bor ve'esh shein v'regel, bor esh shein and regel. You see shein and regel, which is our Mishnah. It's good enough with an inferior protection. And the Gemara says, bor dechsiv, bor we see because it's written in the pasuk, yiftach ishbor o chiyichre ishbor. It says a person opens the pit or he digs the pit, v'lo yichasenu, he doesn't cover it. Hakiseu pater, as long as he covers it, that's enough. Eish dechsiv, and fire, because it's written, shalim yishalim hamavir es habeira. It says that the person who made the fire has to pay. Ad do'avid ke'ein mavir, it has to be as if he directly, with negligence, did it. As long as there's some protection, as long as he guarded it somewhat, that is enough. Shein dechsiv uvir b'steyacher, by shein it says, it's written in the pasuk that it grazes in another field. Ad do'avid ke'ein ubir, it has to be like ubir. Again, it has to be as if he did it bi'adayim, as if it was total negligence. As long as there's a normal protection, that's enough. And regel dechsiv, regel, because it's written v'shilach, it says v'shilach, a similar idea. Ad do'avid ke'ein v'shilach, it has to be as if it was v'shilach, again, as if the person did it directly. As long as there's some kind of shmira, that is enough. V'tanyan, we learned in a brisa, v'shilach zeharegel, that the word v'shilach refers to regel. So we see this is talking about regel, v'chein hu omer, and similarly it says in the pasuk, meshalchei regel hashor v'hachamor, it says meshalchei regel hashor v'hachamor. You see v'shilach is regel, ubir zehashein, and we also know that bir is shein. V'chein hu omer, like it says in the pasuk. Similarly it says in the pasuk, kasher yevar hagol al atumo. It uses the word yevar, and in this context also, it's referring to the consumption of shein, it's referring to eating. And Rashi explains, Kashru Bailav Lashor, again the owner ties up the shore of Inal Befun of Karoi Garsinan and closes the gate properly. So Tam Chayiv, so when it comes to a Tam, we say Chayiv de lo Sagile Bepchusa. According to Rabbi Yehuda, by a Tam, unlike Rabbi Meir, by both a Tam and a Muad, you need to have a Shmira Mu'ula, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's just by a Tam you need a Shmira Mu'ula, it's not enough with a Shmira Pechusa. The time of Rabbi Yehuda, Beperek Shosha Nagach Dalet Vehei, we learned the reason of Rabbi Yehuda earlier. Rabbi Elazar Palagat Tarvayu, Rabbi Elazar argues on both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. The Ilu Rabbi Meir Shmir miu b'shmira mu'ula sagile. At least Rabbi Meir says a shmira mu'ula is good enough. Rabbi Lazar savar less lenin to Yerushalayim muad. Rabbi Lazar says there is no real way to watch over a muad. The only way is to kill the animal. Hakiso, if you cover the boar, afilu porsa even a little, velo boya at the time lebiafra, you don't need to fill it with dirt. So you see again the shmira pechusa is good by boar. Kein mavir b'pshia, again when it comes to the fire, it has to be like a mavir, it has to be with negligence. As long as there's some shmira, it's good enough. Keinu beer, similarly by beer, by shane, kein shiachilena lebehemto, it has to be as if he actually fed it to his animal, be a daim actively with his hands. Kolomar b'pshia, again it has to be a total negligence, otherwise the person is potter. And so again you see by all of these cases, unlike when we're talking about Keren Tam, we're talking about a Keren Tam or Keren Muad, when we can discuss whether a Shmira Mu'ula is needed or not. But again, when it comes to Shein and Regel and Eish and Bor, the Shmira Mu'ula is not necessary. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabba says, Masnisa Nami Deka. Our Mishnah also implies that this is the case, that we're talking according to Rabbi Meir, that by Keren you need to have a Shmira Mu'ula, but our Mishnah is not talking about Keren. Our Mishnah is talking about Shein, and therefore, since it's talking about Shein, you don't need that Shmira Mu'ula according to Rabbi Meir. Where do we see that from the Mishnah? The Katanit Son, because in the Mishnah it talks about Son, it talks about sheep. Michti B'shor Kaskin, and let us see, until now, B'shor Kaskin and V'asi, until now, all we're dealing with are cases of shor, cases of an ox. Nisni shor, why don't we have shor over here? Why don't we talk about an ox in this Mishnah? Ma'ishna de Katanit Son, why do we suddenly, what's the difference over here, that we suddenly talk about son, we talk about sheep? Lav Mishum da Torah miyata b'shmirasin. Isn't it because of this reason that the Torah is saying there's less shmira that's necessary when it comes to tzon, when it comes to shein and regel? Lav mishum dekan keren lo chsiva ba. Isn't it because by the tzon we don't have cases of keren, rather shein v'regel hu dechsibbe, we talk about shein and regel when we talk about tzon v'kamash molan, and therefore it's teaching us exactly this idea to shein v'regel de muadin hu shmamina. We're talking about shein and regel, which are muad from the outset. That's the case we're talking about. That's where you need a lesser shmira, and the Gemara says indeed we do see that from the Mishnah. And we should note over here that some learn that when the Gemara says Lav mishum dekan keren lo chsiva ba shein v'regel hu dechsivbe, that when it comes to tzon, it doesn't talk about keren by tzon, it talks about shein and regel by tzon. The Gemara is actually rejecting the inference by Rabba, and the Gemara is saying it could really be that our Mishnah does follow Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda holds that shmira pchusa is good not only by shein v'regel but also by keren muad. And the reason why the Mishnah is talking specifically about tzon is not because it's only by tzon that shmira pchusa is good. Shmira Pechusa would be good even by Keren Muad as well. But the reason why we talk about Tzon is because by Tzon, Keren is not written. Shein v'regel hu dechsibbe, Shein and Regel are written by Tzon, v'kamash molan. And so therefore the Mishnah simply wants to teach us the Shein v'regel de muadin hu shmamina, that our Mishnah is talking about Shein v'regel, which are muad from the outset, and that might be the real reason again why the Mishnah chooses Tzon, but it might not be to say that the Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, and to say that the Mishnah is only dealing with Shein v'regel, because only Shein v'regel, it's enough to have Shmira Pechusa. It could be by Keren Muad as well. Shmira Pechusa is enough like Rabbi Yehuda, but the Mishnah just wants to identify that it is speaking about Shein and Regel and not Keren. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Tanya, we learned in a Braisa, Rabbi Yoshua says, Arba Devarim, by four things, Ha'oso son pater midinei adam, if somebody does them, he's pater midinei adam, he doesn't have to pay in the court system, V'chayev b'dinei shamayim, but he is chayev in the heavenly court. Ve'eluhein, and they are as follows. Haporetz geder b'fnei behemas chaveru. Let's say a person breaches the fence in front of the animal of his friend, causes that animal gets out and causes damage, so he doesn't have to pay midinei adam, but he pays midinei shamayim. V'akofev kamaso shel chaveru b'fnei adleiko. Let's say somebody bends the stalk of grain of his friends in front of the fire, so it catches fire. V'hasocher eidei sheker lahoyed. And let's say somebody hires false witnesses to testify, and that causes damage inappropriately. V'hayodea eidas l'chaveru ve'eno meidlo. And if somebody knows testimony for his friend, but he doesn't provide that testimony, also over there, it's pater midinei adam and chayiv b'dinei shamayim. And Rashi explains pater midinei adam. All of these cases are pater midinei adam. Kasavar grama b'nizakin pater. Rashi understands that Rabbi Yoshua holds that grama by nizakin is pater, and these are all cases of grama. That's why it's pater midinei adam, but it's still going to be chayiv midinei shamayim. Again, for example, then poretz geder, you breach the fence. That's a grama. You're causing that the animal gets out. Haporetz geder v'yotzasa habehema of barcha. Again, the animal gets out and flees. Or hakofev kamaso, somebody bends the stalk of grain, litzad hadeleka, towards the fire, kadesh tevar bo ha'esh, in order that the fire catches it in order that it catches on fire. All of these cases, again, they're cases where you're pater midinei adam and chayev b'dinei shamayim. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Omar Mar, the master said, we just said above, haporetz geder b'fnei behemas chavero, somebody breaches the fence in front of the animal of his friend. Heichi dami, what exactly is the case? Ilema b'kosel bari, if we're talking about a strong wall that the person breaks, b'dinei adam nami nechayev, the person should be chayev even in the regular courts. And so the Gemara says, Ella rather, and Rashi explains, ibekosel bari b'dinei adam nami nechayev, if it's a strong wall, even b'dinei adam, he should be chayev mia akosel. Rashi understands that the question is, you should at least be chayev on the wall that you damaged, to have yadayim of it, because that was done actively. You can't say you're chayev on the animal. To hatanan pirtzu list and putter. We already said that if the robbers breach the wall, then he's going to be putter, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Vav Amud Aleph.